What movie blew your mind the first time you watched it? Don't know why, but Scarface, in the theater. The year was 1983, and prior to that there had been few movies that captured the violence of the drug trade and organized crime. The Godfather, sure. East Coast and Chicago Mob. James Cagney and Al Capone. It was just as gory as any horror flick, had the soundtrack by Giorgio Moroder. Directed by master director, Brian De Palma, and written by Oliver Stone. When you see it for the first time, on the big screen, in CinemaScope and Dolby Sound, it is breathtaking. I left the theater on a high, and thinking that I could possibly make it big like Tony. John Wick 1. I went into it thinking it'll be a run-of-the-mill action revenge movie, but holy hell are the stunts good. Even the world building and characters blew my mind by how subtle but in-depth the lore went. I was most impressed by Viggo though. I was surprised by how well-rounded he was as a villain. Rather than just being a typical mob boss, he was also John's former friend, and a father just trying to protect his son even though he made a stupid mistake. He even has little funny quirks about him that caught me off guard. Lol. Aliens. Simply because this kid in one of my classes when I was in grade 8 told me he went and saw this incredible movie in the theater. Yup, I'm old, and then went on to describe each scene. I honestly thought he was making it all up because it sounded so crazy. But oh no, my friends, that movie is legendary, and that kid described it to A. He did rack some plot points for me. Absolutely stunning movie. Truman Show. First 55 minutes was slow but slightly interesting. Around the 55-minute mark, in a desperate attempt to talk to the only friend Truman has ever known, it cuts to the director feeding his friend lines. After that, the movie became one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. One of the most satisfying endings, and in my own personal opinion, somewhere in the top 10 best endings to a movie. The Great Gatsby? Sounds a bit silly, but the lesson I took from it was to give everything I got as long as the goal is achievable, but stop as soon as you see that it's not. Things you can't achieve aren't worth the effort in pursuit, because in the end those efforts usually do you more harm than they bring you joy. Apart from that, the obvious acoustical and visual impressions were awesome. I watched all of Popeye 1980 because my brother said he punched a whale out of the water and into the sky. So I was like, so, it's a cartoon? And he was like, no, and I was all like, so like Jaws, and he was all like, no, like a big whale, and I was all like, how? And he was all like, I dunno. Anyway, if Wes Anderson was miserable, that's what I watched. True Romance. My girlfriend back in 1993 thought this was a nice relationship picture and asked if we could go see it, so we did. I had no notion of what it was about and was basically dragged to go to the cinema. So it was just the best surprise possible for me to find out what kind of movie this really was. Twister. Caught it on TV as a kid a few years after release. I had a crippling fear of storms and avoided media about them at all costs. But the visuals, the campiness, and the all-around feel of the movie pulled me straight in. It really helped me get over my fear. It's still my favorite movie to this day. Getting ready for the onslaught of downvotes. The Majestic. It fully blew my mind how well Jim Carrey could actually seriously act. Until then I'd only see him act outside of a full-on comedy in The Truman Show. Plus the story truly had me in tears the whole way through. Such an extremely underrated gem. Alien. Me and Dad saw it when it came out in theaters. I was young but tall enough to pass for 17 years old as long as I kept my mouth shut. I am 6 feet 6 inches 198 centimeters tall. We walked into the theater all big and ballsy, and we were utterly mortified when we left. Been a sci-fi horror junkie ever since. The Lawnmower Man. It was on at the Dollar Theater and we were all high on acid, so, hey, why not? We smuggled in a few beers and sat down for the show. After it was over we went to a nearby nature preserve and had some serious contemplation. Let's just say it was a big day for all of us. Dead Man's Shoes. Spoiler alert. When it becomes clear that Anthony had died that day and he had been a ghost the entire time, my mind went into panic mode. The movie gave me a real physical sensation of doom. It's a majestic piece of filmmaking, but it is extremely dark and depressing. From dusk till dawn. I had no idea what it was about beforehand, and so I'm watching a movie about a couple brothers heading to Mexico with a family they've kidnapped when bam! Salma Hayek turns into a vampire and all sorts of shit pops off. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Donnie Darko Old Boy. Caught both at the cinema when they first came out and totally blew my mind. Possibly dragged me to hell. The cinema wasn't loud and the jump scares so tiring I had to have a little walk to calm myself down before getting in the car to drive home. Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. I was on edibles the first time I saw it and it was so absurd but made me think about my life and its absurdity. I also found out a few years later that my mom was also on edibles when we first watched it, which is also funny. Saving Private Ryan. It was the first real movie I saw when I was a teenager. My family wasn't big on movies. My dad would only take me to watch animated or movies aimed for kids. My sister took me along with his BF and my mind was blown at 12 years of age. The whole promotional build up to it in the months and weeks before. What is The Matrix everywhere and the trailers giving none of it away. Then finally, you are sat there in the theater hanging on every word. Then the big reveal comes. Whoa! Avatar! Sat in a row 19 where the 3D at the time worked for my eyes. Not every row did, my eyes are weird. Now my eyes are so messed up 3D just doesn't work. At all. That and How to Train a Dragon. That was a good one in 3D with youthful eyes. Modern Times. I was an instant Chaplin fanatic after watching it. I had to see everything he'd made, read everything I could about him. This classic film also opened the floodgates of innumerable classics going back to the early 20th century. Tangled. I was 10 years old and it was my first 3D movie. When the scene with the lanterns came on, it was almost like they were flying in the cinema. We all stood up trying to touch them. Never had a 3D experience as good as that one since Watchmen. It's literally a shot-for-shot remake of the incredible comic besides the slight change to the ending. The casting was also near perfect, particularly Rorschach and Night Owl. I honestly don't understand why it's not more liked. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, seeing cartoon and live action mixed so well blew me away. Independence Day, the level of city destruction was beyond amazing to watch. The Matrix, the mindfuck it gave me leaving the cinema lasted for a while. As a youngling, I watched the Lord of the Rings movies in the cinema before having read the books. I knew almost nothing when going to watch The Fellowship of the Ring, but for a few things a relative told me. A more recent one is Promising Young Woman. Some classics that still hold up very well are Inception, Shutter Island, Fight Club, Sixth Sense, Saw, and favorite trilogy of all time Lord of the Rings. Alien and Life of Brian both came out in 1979, when I was 14 and at a Catholic boys' school. Soul Life of Brian was naturally phenomenal to me as a Catholic, and separately, Alien, what a movie. Interstellar. I can watch it a million times and my mind will be blown exactly the same every single time. I will cry the same every single time. I will have an existential crisis every single time. Terry Gilliam's Brazil, the ending completely pulled the rug from under my feet. It remains my favorite movie of all time, not just because of the ending but pretty much everything about it. Inglourious Basterds. It was for a class I was taking in college. It was the first Quentin Tarantino film I ever saw and I love the way he's able to write dialogue that just sucks you in. Waking Life. And I watched it a bunch more times since then. High. Not high. Looking for fun and interesting ways to interpret it on different viewings. The movie is amazing. Easy answers are The Matrix, Fight Club, maybe I Heart Huckabees. But this might be an unpopular answer, but the first time I watched Cloud Atlas I was pretty gobstopped. The Cabin in the Woods. It was the first time I saw a character that wasn't going to sacrifice themselves for the world and wasn't painted as a villain. Mind blown. Titanic. I was and still am obsessed with the ship. Seeing it brought back to life in 1998 on the big screen was mind-blowing. The sinking sequence was incredible. The Count of Monte Cristo. I remember screaming and crying when my parents dragged me to see the movie and then being in complete awe once the movie started going. Inside Out. Yes, I am a grown man. Yes, I bawled my eyes out. Yes, my inner child cried. Yes, I related to Riley despite, again, being a fully adult male. Funny Games American version. I haven't seen a theater walk out completely silent since. And the first time is the only time I ever want to see that movie. Frozen, that little me singing Let It Go everywhere every time. I guess that counts. If I answered that wrong then I'd say Interstellar. Funny Black Hole Big Paranormal Activity, never had seen a movie like that. 13 Cloverfield Lane found footage masterpiece. Sinister restored my faith in horror movies. Apocalypse Now. My dad took me to see it at a small theater in Florida while we were on a camping vacation, and I can still remember almost every scene. The Shawshank Redemption, the combination of yanking out the poster and the music that starts immediately after, gives me goosebumps, even to this day. What's Eating Gilbert Grape? It's a mind-blowing movie with a good flow. Every actor is amazing. Johnny Depp and Leonardo DiCaprio are so good here. As a non-American who didn't know the story, only the brave, holy crap, the ending, it made me bawl. Also of course the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Fight Club. It was such a weird movie with such crazy characters. Beautifully shot and a great story with themes that are still of interest today. The Usual Suspects, Fight Club, being John Malkovich, adaptation, Mulholland Drive and Moulin Rouge are the ones that come to mind right now. Star Trek First Contact. I was hyped by the trailers and the thought of seeing the new Enterprise, plus T.H.R. Borg loved every second of it. Hell baby! I walked away wondering how anyone who had anything to do with making that movie wasn't executed after it being released. Seen A Clockwork Orange on Netflix last year. My first Kubrick's film. Had to pause few times throughout the film to calm myself down. The Green Mile. I'd read the book and was amazed at how book accurate and well acted that movie was. Never had that experience again. First time I watched A Clockwork Orange I said out look, what the actual fuck did I just watch? I wanted to watch it again. A few. First, Fight Club, what a mindfuck that is. Next, Blade Runner. And last, Once Upon a Time in America. It's perfect. Not exactly blowing my mind but Brokeback Mountain. I thought it was a Western thing. And it was, but with a twist. The Martian. I don't like sci-fi but this was really good. I watched it, then I watched it again and then I bought the book. La La Land. As a jazz enthusiast, I was so shook to see it incorporated into such a well-done movie. To me it's perfection. E-Existence, it came out around the same time as The Matrix. I saw E-Existence first and that kind of spoiled it for the latter.